Hi everybody. In this session, we're going to look at everything that is relating to the uniform of the athletes. The first things that we need to check when we're doing a uniform check for the athletes is basically the first basically of the webinar is the design of the uniform, and basically every national federation must send the design of their equipment, of their uniforms, to the ITU before the season. So we must ensure that this is correct. The other things that are mandatory is that we need to make sure that the ITU logo is on the uniform, that the name of the athletes is on the uniform, both in front and in the back, and also the country code, the 3-letter country code, front and back on the lower back. Okay. Then, additionally, we allow the athletes to display sponsors. So we have allocated several spaces on the uniform to do that for that purpose. You will have to check that. The only thing that you need to be aware basically is that there are specifications, but we will provide, or there are templates that are provided on the website section for the technical officials that allows you to make the measurement for this purpose.
Yeah, and if you're creating your own templates, it's a good idea to measure the templates after you print them off, because in certain parts of the world you're using different size paper, and sometimes they get a little distorted. So always measure them after you print them off.
And not only that, the printers are automatically shrinking.
Yes.
So you need to be aware of that.
I need one of those printers. I'd like to shrink a little bit. Okay, so there are some differences between the age group and elite athlete uniforms. They're all combined under one document now, the guidelines regarding authorized identification. The major difference between the age group and the elite athletes is that the age group athletes do not have to have their name on their suit, as Stefan mentioned in the earlier slides. Although you'll find that many age groupers do choose to have them on, and it's a nice little memento for them. For the difference between the long distance events and the rest of the ITU events, the long distance events you can have a front zipper, preferably if you're male, and you can show part of your lower torso now with your belly button exposed. There is a catalog that Stefan mentioned earlier that the national federations have to submit various designs to ITU that will be approved or not approved, and once they're approved, they're placed in a catalog that you can have access to, and this is for the World Triathlon Series events.
And this is probably a point that we need to clarify. This catalog is not a document that we have to use for every single event. Depending the category that we have, there are specific races that these catalogs are applicable. So for example, for elite athletes, if the elites are racing on a World Triathlon Series event, on a World Championship, on a Continental Championship, or on a multi-sport World Championship, then the uniform needs to be included, the design of the uniform needs to be included in that catalog. In a similar way, for the under-23 and the junior athletes, it's the World Championship and the Continental Championships. For youth, it's the Continental Championships, and for para-triathletes, it's the World Championship, Continental Championship, and the World Para-Triathlon Series events. So if you go to a Continental Cup, a catalog should not be used for these races. The athletes, they have the right to use any uniform they want, as long as the name, the country, and the sponsors are complying with the guidelines that we have on our website.
Yeah, and don't worry if you didn't have a chance to write that down. That is in the competition rules that you can refer quickly to. And rain jackets, coming from Vancouver, Canada, we have a lot of use for rain jackets, and they are allowed for competitions that are middle and long distance events, or when the technical delegate authorizes it. But we do want to see those uniforms, so it either has to be the same design and color as their original uniform, or it has to be transparent so that we can see their uniform through it.
Exactly.
I don't want to shock Leslie, so obviously this is not allowed in ITU. Okay, there's no bare torso when we are doing a competition,
which is probably it's a big mistake.
I think our viewership would go up if we did.
Then I don't know if you have an idea looking at this image what you think, if it's allowed or not allowed. your time is up. So basically, if it's a wetsuit race, the athlete is allowed to wear compression socks or compression calf, sorry. Calf, not socks actually. And of course it's not allowed if it's a non-wetsuit event.
Okay, sometimes you'll find that you've gone through the whole rigmarole of an athlete check-in, and then the uniform that the athlete wears to the event is not the one that they checked in. And so if they do that, if it complies with the rules, then they will get a very strong warning. And if not, it is a disqualification. Swim skins have become very prevalent in our sport, so it's important that they be or they can be removed after the swim segment, except in standard or shorter distances. You need to make sure that the texture, the textiles that they're using for the swim skin is the same as you would find in a tri-suit. Middle and long distance events, you should check the wetsuit section of the guidelines regarding authorized identifications that I mentioned earlier in the webinars, and they will guide you on what is allowed and what is not allowed in those swim skins.
So just a point to clarify with the swim skins, they can have similar materials like the tree suits, which means that the material that is used for wetsuit cannot be incorporated, cannot be part of the swim skins. If this happens, then by de facto cannot be used in any competition. And as Leslie mentioned, for middle and long distance events, they can be removed after the swim. And the main reason is because we have changing facilities attached to the traditional on that events. But for the shorter events, this is not allowed. And as such, the uniform guidelines, they are totally different. So in the first case, in the middle and long distance, they can be in line with the wetsuit. In the other events, they have to be in line with the tree suit uniform guidelines. So this is a short introduction around the guidelines that we have on uniforms. As Steph mentioned, you don't need to remember by heart all the specifications. There are templates in place that will help you do your work properly. But in any case, please have clear in your mind the difference between mid and long distance events and the rest of the race, because the rules have changed recently and there are the differences are quite a lot. So thank you very much for joining us on this webinar, and we'll see you on the next one.